monarch is said to be deeply hurt at the criticism against the palace unleashed by his youngest son and his wife. But despite his torment, Charles's love for Harry trumps all, and he has not given up hope of eventually building bridges between the Windsor's warring factions, insiders have said. The palace is maintaining a dignified silence at Harry and Meghan's Netflix documentary and will continue that policy when the Duke of Sussex's book Spare is released in the new year. Sources have made it clear the king does not want to strip Harry and Meghan of their titles, and that in time a meeting may be able to take place to try and heal the rift ahead of his coronation in May. The hope is that once the dust has settled, the family will be able to move on and put the past behind them, a palace source said. The source said of the king, "He loves both his sons and hope springs eternal for a happier future all round." If some can stop fixating on the past. Asked about the possibility of the king extending an olive branch, they added, "Let's see how things evolve." Charles's magnanimous attitude shows a deep compassion and forgiveness in the wake of the Netflix documentary, which saw Harry accusing his father of saying things that just simply weren't true, William of being terrifying, and palace officials briefing against him and Meghan. Royal author Christopher Wilson said, "Imagine the hurt feelings of the king today. He has lost a son twice over, as a beloved member of his family, and as a valuable member of Team Windsor. That Harry has cast himself out, and done his best to trash the first months of his father's reign, is unforgivable. But you're left with the overwhelming belief that, despite all, Charles still loves Harry and would welcome him back into the fold. We are seeing signs of compassion in the sovereign that maybe we never saw before. But for sure, he must be hurting inside." The documentary has triggered calls for the couple to be stripped of their Duke and Duchess titles, and last night a one-poll survey commissioned by The Express showed 62% of those questioned think Harry and Meghan should relinquish them. Only 25% said they should keep them, with 13% saying they did not know. Sources close to the king have made it clear that he will not support MPs who want to strip any members of his family of their titles. Downing Street has said that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is also not in favour of such action. Tory MP Bob Seely wants to amend the 1917 Titles Deprivation Act to give the Privy Council power to downgrade Harry and Meghan's royal status. But without government support, his efforts are doomed, and constitutional experts have warned anyway that it would be technically difficult to amend the 1917 Act, which was aimed specifically at a handful of German aristocrats fighting against Britain in the First World War. In the 6-episode Netflix series, Harry confirmed that he and Meghan had offered to relinquish their titles when they first told their family in January 2020 that they intended to quit their senior royal roles. There were calls yesterday for them to give up their titles and their royal status. The distinguished royal biographer and historian Hugo Vickers said, "I think they should, but I don't think they will." He praised the king and the rest of the family for carrying on regardless, and insisted they were right not to react publicly to the Sussexes' complaints. "The less said the better," he added. Joe Little, a veteran royal watcher and the managing editor of Majesty magazine, also supported the idea of them giving up their titles voluntarily, but doubted it would happen. "If they relinquish their titles, they are devalued monetarily," he said. Indeed, despite making the offer initially, Harry and Meghan have continued to use their royal titles to make money. The late Queen had to intervene to stop them from using the name Sussex Royal for their charitable foundation after they quit. Indeed, it is not clear how they could relinquish their titles without the support of the king and the government. There are only two ways it can be done: through an Act of Parliament or with the king using the royal prerogative by issuing letters patent. Dr. Bob Morris of the Constitution Unit at University College London said, "They could just stop using their titles in practice, but that wouldn't be legal." Similarly, the only way for Harry to be removed from the line of succession is for Parliament to bring in legislation. The only way for him to remove himself is by converting to Catholicism. Catholics are banned from being king. Sources said the king wants resolution without retribution and is most saddened to see his sons locked in bitter conflict. In a deeply distressing passage for the royal family, just 3 months after the death of the Queen, Harry, 38, who quit as a working royal in 2020, claimed William, 40, is defined by the institution and screamed at him during a Sandringham summit where the future of the Sussexes was decided. In the warts and all show, he added, "It was terrifying to have my brother scream and shout at me and my father say things that just simply weren't true. And my grandmother, quietly sit there and take it all in." Charles, 74, and Camilla, 75, are understood to have given the Netflix series a miss but have been briefed on its contents by aides. The King and Queen consort will now spend a quiet Christmas at Sandringham without the Sussexes, before the release of Harry's biography in the new year. Entitled Spare, the book is described as being written not as the prince I was born but as the man I have become, and is set for release on January 10. The King's considered silence comes as politicians take aim at the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, saying they risk overshadowing Charles's official accession and ramping up public displeasure. Former Tory leader Sir Ian Duncan Smith said, "If they dislike the royal family so much, why would they attend the coronation?" Comment by Christopher Wilson. Harry and Meghan claimed this week they offered to give up their titles when they fled Britain. Isn't now the time to see whether they really meant it? The shock and anger expressed by millions watching the series is a strong indicator that it'd be a popular move, demonstrating to the world the couple had finally cut their ties with our royal family. The Duke and Duchess threw mud at the House of Windsor, which didn't stick. Their series did its best to hold the royal institution below the waterline, it failed. Public opinion swung round behind William and Kate and the rest of the royals, and the battle's over. They lost. So since Harry offered, or says he did, to ditch his titles of Duke of Sussex, Earl of Dumbarton and Lord Gilkeel, what's to stop it happening now? The answer is, quite a lot. The process is a complex one, requiring an Act of Parliament involving politicians in both houses, some of whom could use the opportunity to take potshots at our embattled royals. What's more, the Crown would have to present a reason to Parliament why the Duke's titles should be taken away. That would involve a very public rerun of Harry's complaints, and a detailed explanation of why the King and his family feel he's irreparably damaged them. On both counts, such actions would highlight the palpable weaknesses within the royal machine, something King Charles almost certainly would wish to avoid. In any case, it would appear from his silence and inaction that the King doesn't want to injure the runaway couple any more than they have been, according to them. Since his accession in September, Charles has presented a benign exterior to the world, avuncular, charming, and accessible. It might dent that image internationally if he were to brutally strip his son of honors and dignities, and, conscious of the damage already caused by the Netflix series, particularly in the United States, Charles almost certainly would prefer to leave any decision to Harry. Even if Harry were to renounce his titles, he'd still be a royal prince, entitled for the rest of his days to describe himself as Prince Harry. Meghan, in this scenario, would become Princess Harry, so the couple would never become Mr. and Mrs. Windsor, as their critics now fervently wish. And given that, quite clearly, Meghan is the driving force in the marriage, would she actually want Harry to renounce his titles? We all know the answer to that. Since their arrival in the United States, she's styled herself as Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, which is actually incorrect. She can only use that title if divorced from Harry and there is a new wife, or if widowed and her son Archie took up his father's title. So her actual title is Duchess of Sussex, a brand name she would give up with great reluctance. She wouldn't be the first to put up a struggle to retain her title. The last Duchess of Sussex, born Lady Augusta Murray, who married Augustus, fifth son of King George III more than 200 years ago, clung onto the title long after the marriage was over, despite repeated orders from the king for her to drop it. It took a lot of persuading her otherwise, including being given another title in its place, and being rewarded with backdoor payments for the rest of her life. After her exposure to the TV cameras this week, it's not difficult to imagine the Duchess putting up a similar fight. All of which would add to her list of complaints against the family Meghan so happily married into, so perhaps better to let the matter drop. Least said, as the old saying goes, soonest mended. His thoughts were shared by Tory grandee David Miller, who said, "They shouldn't come to the coronation. They categorically shouldn't come. They make money out of selling their family down the river. I think it should be made clear that the British people do not want them there. They are a sad pair and there is no hope for them on their current course." The fallout has been emotional as well as physical, with Charles twice the victim of egging incidents during public walkabouts. Coronation Day on Saturday, May 6 at Westminster Abbey will see the King crowned alongside Camilla, the Queen consort, some 70 years after his mother. Potential peace talks will be put on hold until after the release of Spare, in which Harry says in a foreword, "I've worn many hats over the years, both literally and figuratively, and my hope is that in telling my story, the highs and lows, the mistakes, the lessons learned, I can help show that no matter where we come from, we have more in common than we think." He added, "I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to share what I've learned over the course of my life so far and excited for people to read a first-hand account of my life that's accurate and wholly truthful."